Good evening, my name is Leoric Silverbloom, and I'll be your host for tonight. Tonight I'll tell you the fascinating story of the Battleship Bismarck and his eventual end. Yes, a he, because I know so many of you will rage at me if I call the Bismarck a she. I know how it is. Right, as usual, I will give you the backstory and the creation of the ship, the discovery, and the hunt for Bismarck. Again, this topic is something that's dear to my heart because I love World War II history, and this is one of the many highlights of the war. The unsinkable beast of a ship hunted by a whole fleet. Okay, before I go on a tangent, let's talk about the backstory behind the creation of the ship first. So, in the mid-30s, the German designed the Bismarck to counter the French naval expansion. The ship exceeds the limitations set by the Anglo-German Naval Agreement by 15,000 tons of steel, totaling the ship's weight to be a little over 50,000 tons. Though the treaty kind of fell apart completely by the time of the ship's completion in 1936. Also, the battleship was Germany's largest warship and the largest ever built by European powers at the time. Its creation was understandably kept secret, and the German ordered the creation of the ship under the guise of replacement for the old SMS Hanover in 1936. The ship was named after Otto von Bismarck and christened by Dorothy von Löwenfeld, granddaughter of the Chancellor Otto von Bismarck himself, shortly before its launch in 1936. On September 1940, they tested the ship for its performance, maneuverability, and flaws. Well, they discovered this one flaw when they attempted to steer the ship solely through altering propeller revolutions. I'm sorry, I have a hard time differentiating L and R, so yeah, please excuse me. Even even with the outboard screws running at full power in opposite direction, they generated only a slight turning ability, if at all, that is. On the evening of May 19, Bismarck departed from Goddenhaven and headed for the Danish Strait, with Prince Huginn joining in a bit later. The two ships were escorted by 3 destroyers and a flotilla of minesweep. What the fuck is a flotilla? A flotilla is a formation of small warships that may or may not be a part of a larger fleet. Anyway, that, and they also have Luftwaffe escort while they're still in German waters, U-boats scouting ahead, and a bunch of supply ship on their route. Listen, this is the most important ship for the Germans. It's the pride of their nations, okay? They get spotted by Swedish reconnaissance aircraft. And let's be honest here, they're not that discreet in its operations anyway. And the information obviously quickly made its way to the British Admiralty, and at this point, the German knew that their secrecy had been blown. By the morning, Prince Eugene intercepted a British signal ordering the British reconnaissance aircraft to search for the 2 battleships and the 3 destroyers. The British are looking for them. The convoy managed to reach Norway. While docking, the Germans deployed a bunch of Messerschmitt Bf-109 to guard the airspace above them. But flying officer Michael Suckling managed to fly his Spitfire directly over the German flotillas and took this photo over here, which I can point to because the image is not added post-production. We're doing it live. Anyway, the 2 ships are ordered to make the dash through the Denmark Strait to attempt a breakout into the open Atlantic Ocean. May 23rd, around 7 p.m., hydrophone radar operators aboard the German warship detected the cruiser as HMS Suffolk. Prince Eugene's radio intercept team decrypted the radio signals being sent by the Suffolk and learned that their location had been reported. Few moments later, HMS Norfolk joined Suffolk, but they got too close to the German raiders, and the Bismarck managed to fire 5 salvos at them, 3 of which managed to hit the Norfolk dead on. The cruiser laid a smoke screen and fled into a fog bank, ending the brief engagement. But the recoil from the Bismarck's gun destroyed his radar set, so Prince Eugene took station ahead so she could use her functioning radar to scout ahead. In the morning, Prince Eugene detected a pair of unidentified vessels approaching the German formation. Early morning on May 24, the Germans spotted smoke screen on the horizon. The Hood and Prince of Wales, under the command of Vice Admiral Lancelot Holland, are coming for them. Hood opened fire, followed by Prince of Wales a minute later. Hood mistook the Prince Huginn for the Bismarck and engaged the ship, while Prince of Wales took on the actual Bismarck. The British approach were not very effective, since their ship could only use their forward guns while Germans could fire full broadsides, and both German ships concentrated their fire on the Hood. And a few minutes later, Prince Huginn managed to detonate projectile ammunition on HMS Hood and started a large fire, but quickly extinguished. After 3 salvos, they ranged the Hood. They immediately ordered rapid-fire salvos from the Bismarck's 8 38cm guns. Prince Huginn shifted to fire at the Prince of Wales in order to keep both of his opponents under fire. Prince immediately scored 2 hits. And after that, Prince Huginn then fell behind the Bismarck, so she could continue to monitor the location of Norfolk and Suffolk, which were around 20 kilometers away from them. 6 a.m., a 38cm armor-piercing shell from the Bismarck struck Hood and penetrated her thin-deck armor. The shell reached Hood's rear ammunition magazine and detonated 112 tons of corroded propellant, splitting the ship in half. The Hood sunk almost immediately. Oh, have I mentioned that HMS Hood is a poster boy of the British Navy? Well, this is a battle between pride of nations. Anyway, the Germans then focused their fire to the Prince of Wales, which soon retreated using smoke screen to cover her retreat. Bismarck and Prince Huginn resumed their journey to the North Atlantic, and this is the picture of the aftermath of the battle. This is the Bismarck taken from Prince Huginn. Günther Lutyens, the commanding officer of Operation Rheinübung, ordered Prince Huginn to fall behind Bismarck to determine the severity of the oil leakage from the hit. After confirming massive leak from both sides of Bismarck, Prince returned to the front of the formation. Do you guys remember Suffolk and Norfolk? Well, they joined the hunt along with the battered Prince of Wales, with Rear Admiral Frederick Wakewalker, the commander of the 2 cruisers, ordered Prince of Wales to remain behind the ship. That morning, the news of the sinking of the Hood reached the Admiralty, with Prime Minister Winston Churchill broadcasted an order to every able-bodied ship in the Atlantic: sink the Bismarck. Well, that is a price to pay for sinking such a prized and famous ship, I guess. An eye for an eye. Anyway, the hunt is on. Duffy's home fleet, the Battleship Rodney, and fittingly 2 old Revenge-class battleships, Revenge and Ramillies, joined the hunt, while light cruisers Manchester, Birmingham, and Arethusa patrolled the Denmark Strait to block the Bismarck from retracing their steps. A total of 6 battleships and battle cruisers, 2 aircraft carriers, 13 cruisers, and 21 destroyers were in the hunt. A small detail that I like is that Prince of Wales managed to fix 90% of her gun and lead the formation, like a squire seeking revenge for the old Hood. Before the Bismarck turned to face the Wakewalker's formation, Lutyens ordered Prince Huginn to detach from the formation. Bismarck quickly faced the British formation, forcing Suffolk to turn away quickly, and Prince of Wales traded 12 salvos with the Bismarck. This action occupied their attention and allowed Prince Huginn to slip away. The Bismarck quickly turned back and resumed his previous route. Right, the Bismarck was wounded and forced to reduce his speed, and yet this reduced speed is still the maximum speed of Duffy's ship. They need to slow down the beast, or they will never catch up with the Bismarck. Duffy detached the aircraft carrier Victorious and 4 light cruisers to shape a course that would position her to launch her torpedo bombers at the Bismarck, obviously. Victorious launched 6 Perry Fulmar fighters and 9 Perry Swordfish torpedo bombers. The bastard nearly attacked Norfolk and the US Coast Guard, alerting the Bismarck's anti-aircraft gunners. The Bismarck also used his batteries to fire at maximum depression on the water to create a giant splashes to block the path of the torpedo bombers. The Bismarck evaded 8 of the torpedoes launched at him, but the next torpedo struck amidship in the main armored belt. This only caused some minor damage on the ship. The real damage came from the quick maneuvering of the Bismarck. It's a bit too violent for the ship. The rapid shift in the speed and the course loosened the collision mats, which increased the flooding from the fourth shell hole and eventually forced abandonment of the port number 2 boiler room, forcing the Bismarck to reduce his speed. They managed to slow down the Beast. As the chase entered open waters, Walker's ships have to avoid German U-boats and causing the Bismarck to slip beyond the range of Suffolk's radar. At this point, Lucius also ordered the Bismarck for an increase to a maximum speed. He then ordered the ship to circle away to the west and the north. This maneuver coincided with a period during which his ship was out of the radar. Bismarck broke radar contact. The Royal Navy search became frantic. As many of the British ships were low on fuel, they cannot keep searching for long. The aircraft carrier Ark Royal, as pictured here, is still a day away from them. Unaware that he had shaken off Wake Walker's formation, Lucius sent a long radio message to the headquarters in Paris. The signals were intercepted by the British, from which bearings were determined, but at this point the gap between them is pretty significant. Okay, I just wanted to say that I can do a whole ass video about how they determine the location from the radio signal alone. Since they don't have GPS at this point, they have to calculate the location the hard way. Basically, they time the time when the signals reach the radio stations. And if I remember correctly, 3 radio stations that circle the ocean around them, and by doing that, they can determine where the message was from. Okay, let's not go on a tangent about this. I'll do a video about this, I promise. Victorious, Prince of Wales, Suffolk, and Repulse were forced to break off because due to the fuel shortage. The only heavy ships remaining apart from the Fourth Age, which consisted of Ark Royal, the battle cruiser Renown, and the light cruiser Sheffield, were King George V and Rodney, but they were too distant. Ark Royal Swordfish were already searching nearby, and when the Catalina found her, they were ordered to return and armed with torpedoes immediately. Okay, so no one told Ark Royal that the Sheffield was ordered to shadow the Bismarck. The Swordfish torpedo bomber from Ark Royal attacked Sheffield, but thank fuck the new magnetic detonators failed to explode and didn't cause any damage at all. Okay, what the fuck is wrong with them and friendly fires? They're a bit overzealous at this hunt. The Swordfish returned, and they changed their torpedoes to contact detonated ones before they resuming their attack on the Bismarck. At this point, Bismarck managed to cause significant damage to the Sheffield, causing her to deploy her smokescreen and retreated. The Swordfish then attacked. Bismarck began to turn violently as the anti-aircraft batteries engaged the bombers. A torpedo hit him just below the bottom edge of the main armor belt, causing minor damage that easily contained. The second torpedo attack, though, struck him near the port rudder shaft. This, coupling on the port rudder assembly, was badly damaged and the rudder became locked at 12-degree turn to the port. The crew eventually managed to report the starboard rudder, but the port rudder remained jammed. Lucius reported that the ship was unmaneuverable. Bismarck was now steaming in large circle, unable to escape. Lucian signaled headquarters. "Ship unmaneuverable. We will fight to the last shell. Long live the Führer." That's a quote, actually. Fuck the Führer. Anyway, the hunters encountered Bismarck, but the battleship Bismarck quickly engaged them with her main battery, hitting Polish destroyer ORP Pioren. How the hell? The destroyer continued to close the range until a near miss forced her to turn away. Throughout the night and into the morning, the destroyers harasses Bismarck, illuminating him with star shells and firing dozens of torpedoes, which none of them hit. After daybreak, May 27, King George V led the attack. Rodney and Toffee followed. 4 minutes later, they opened fire. Bismarck returned fire and startled Rodney. Thereafter, Bismarck's ability to aim her guns deteriorated as the ships, unable to steer, moved erratically in the heavy seas, preventing range calculations. They managed to hit Bismarck's forward superstructure, probably killed both Lindemann and Lucians and the rest of the British staff. The main fire control director was also destroyed by this hit, which probably also killed Snyder. Lieutenant von Mullenheim-Richburg is the rear control station, took over firing control for the rear turrets. He managed to fire 3 salvos before a shell destroyed the gun director, disabling the equipment. He gave the order for the guns to fire independently, but at this point, all of his guns are silenced. Personal notes here, I think at this point, CDR Hans Ols already ordered the Bismarck to be scuttled by opening the sea cock and a bunch of demolition charges to prevent the British from capturing the ship. So they sink the Bismarck voluntarily. Overall, the 4 British ships fired more than 2,800 shells at the Bismarck and scored more than 400 hits. But they were unable to sink the Bismarck by the gunfire. The heavy gunfire at point-blank range devastated the hull that were above the waterline, causing very heavy casualties, but it contributed very little, if at all, to the eventual sinking of the ship. German engineering, ladies and gentlemen, thank fuck their leader's Austrian. Anyway, this is also the only instance in history one battleship torpedoing another at that point, while slowly sinking under the waves. The Bismarck has been reduced to shambles, aflame from stern to stern. Soon after, Bismarck disappeared beneath the surface. 114 of his crew and a cat survived. You know what? We should do a minute history video about Unsinkable Sam after this. We really need to do that. Okay, anyway, that's it. That's the end of the Battleship Bismarck, the pride of the nations, that meets its early end because of bad luck, and let's be honest, because they sunk the hood. That's the Bismarck. Really, I really love the story behind this particular episode because, you know, I can geek out about the Bismarck for a long time, for hours on end. I am not kidding. So yeah, I'm also sorry for the hiatus because we think if we release the video bi-weekly, we can make, you know, better episodes, and hopefully, since we have more time to do this video compared to the other videos, hopefully this will result in better video quality overall. And yeah, that's it. And again, thanks to Huginn for editing this video and editing the sound effects and all. We're doing this video is very experimental, and hopefully it pays off. We took 2 weeks. We took our time to make this one. So yeah, tell me what you think. So that's it from me. Good night.